Welcome back to the Brotherhood of Men, guys. My name's Andy R, and today I want to talk about nature versus nurture. Nature versus nurture. What do I mean by those two things? Think of it in terms of a computer. The nature is the hardware of the computer. It's what it came out of the factory with in the box. The nurture part is software that you put on top of that hardware to make it work better or to do the things you want it to do. So nature is what you're born with, who you are, what you are. There are certain things that you intrinsically can't deny. So you're born, if you're a man, you're born male. If you were born human, you can no more believe that you're a lizard than you could believe you're a human. You don't need to be convinced of it. You were born human. You're a primate. You're a mammal. All of these things are nature. Then nurture is the environment you're born in and the civilization you're born into. They add the software on top of what you were born. So that's what molds you to become the adult that you are today. Now, if you're given good input, as the science on this goes, then you get good outcomes. If you're given bad input, so if you were born in a war zone, and that, you know, it's less conducive for you to growing up a well-balanced individual than if you were born in a peaceful society that is loving and full of flowers and rainbows. It only stands to reason. But that's nature versus nurture. Now I'm going to tell you something. We're constantly told, believe the science, believe the science, believe the science, believe the science. And that used to be true, believe the science, because science was a rigorous process. If you came up with a theory, you'd done the research, you got the data, and from that data you came up with a theory. You published that theory to the rest of the scientific world, and other scientists could try and reproduce what you did, and if they came to the same results, they said, oh yes, this stands up, this is a good theory. If they couldn't reproduce, they'd say, well, you started off with a terrible premise to start with, or you didn't use very good resources to come to the conclusions, or we can't come to the conclusions you came to even with the same results, so it doesn't work. And that theory gets thrown to the wayside as nonsense. And that's how the scientific community works. You're constantly questioning everything around you. You're constantly questioning your own results, and you're constantly questioning other scientists' results. And that's what makes it so good when something stands up to scientific scrutiny, is that this holds water. Let's go with it until it can be disproved at a later date, or it can be improved upon. And that's the other thing as well, is that you never prove a theory, you can only disprove it. That's why at one time it was believed that the Earth was, well, for longer than we now know it not to be true, it was held as true, that the Earth was the centre of the universe. And then somebody came along, Galileo, and he said, oh no, the sun's the centre of the universe, and here's the calculations, and here's the proof. And of course he was fought back against, but they couldn't disprove his theory, and in fact when they did their own calculations, all they could ever do was say, well, so far all we can do is say he's right. So his theory now became the new truth. But that doesn't mean at some point we might be able to disprove it. It's not been proven. It's just accepted until it's disproved with something better, just like the Earth being the centre of the universe and that being disproved. Some of the greatest theories that we have may one day be disproved. Einstein's E equals mc squared, or Newton's theory of gravity, or any of these things still are only theories. That's why they're called theory of gravity. Einstein's theory of motion, you know, E equals mc squared. That every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So where am I going with this? If that was the truth, now we're being told now, don't question the science. Well, that's how science works, by questioning it. We're told to believe the science and don't question it. Since when did scientists ever say, don't question my theory? Otherwise we'd believe some really wacky theories right now. What they're actually saying is believe the science so long as the science backs up my view on something. And I'm afraid that's no good. Now I'm going to tell you a story, and this is true, again, believe the science, about the cuckoo. Now why would I tell you about the cuckoo? Because it'll make perfect sense when I get to the end of it. If you don't know what a cuckoo, if you don't have cuckoos in your country, look up what a cuckoo is and look up some images of a cuckoo. It's a bird about yay big. It flies from Africa, the females do, pregnant to Europe, and in my country, England. So it comes to Europe in the countryside, it seeks out reed warblers. A reed warbler is a tiny bird in comparison to the cuckoo. And what it does is it watches those reed warblers like a hawk, keeps checking their nest until it sees that they've laid eggs. Then it waits for both the male and female reed warbler to leave the nest at the same time, and it only needs literally seconds, flies in and lays its own egg in that nest. Now here's the first crazy thing. Evolution has told the cuckoo not to lay an egg in proportion to its body size. So a chicken egg is in proportion to a chicken. You don't see chickens laying ostrich eggs. It would explode trying to pass it. But at the same time, it doesn't lay a wren's egg either. It lays an egg proportionate to its body size. But the cuckoo doesn't, because it wants to fool the reed warblers into thinking that that egg it's laid is a reed warbler's egg. It actually lays a smaller egg than would be natural for a bird that size, and it mimics the egg of the reed warbler. It's the same colour and patterning. So when reed warblers come back, there was 5 eggs in there and now there's 6. Well, they don't count, they just notice that the eggs are there and and that's it, fine. Everything's good, nothing's come and predated us, nothing's happened bad to the nest. Let's carry on incubating these eggs. Now also, the cuckoo has laid the egg with a very low gestation time left in that egg, so it's the first one, hopefully the first chick to be hatched. This chick, which if ever you've seen a baby chick when it's born, they're ugly. It's blind, it's not been able to open its eyes, it's got no feathers, it just looks like a freshly plucked chicken, tiny. But it's got a scoop in its back, by where the tail feathers will grow, a scoop in its back. The evolution has given it so it can arch itself backwards, hook under the eggs, the other eggs that are in the nest, and flick them out of the nest, destroying all of the reed warbler's chicks. If there's a chick, it'll do the same to that. But if it's not a chick, it's just the eggs, it'll destroy those eggs, flicking them out of the nest, not breaking them in the nest, because if it broke them in the nest, the reed warblers would come back and realise that something's gone wrong and would abandon that chick because it's not a safe nest. So it flicks them out. So the reed warbler comes back and now there's one chick in there that needs feeding. They haven't got time to worry about the other eggs that didn't hatch. This chick needs feeding. And it comes from a bird that is probably 5 times larger than a reed warbler. So it takes both of those reed warblers constantly going backwards and forwards, collecting insects and that, to feed this cuckoo chick that they think is theirs, to get it to grow. By the time this chick is ready to fledge and fly away from the nest, it completely fills that nest. It's ginormous compared to the parents, but the parents think it's theirs. They don't see anything wrong. They've fed it, they saw it hatch. They will feed it and feed it and feed it and feed it until it flies away. And when it fledges, it flies away. And as the season goes on, that cuckoo, and this is the question, this is the nature versus nurture comes in. Because the question I'm about to ask you is going to go in your mind. It's going to blow your mind. How does that cuckoo know it's a cuckoo? It's never seen another cuckoo. Let's be right. After laying that egg, that female cuckoo isn't coming back for parental visits. Hey, how you getting on, son? You're still managing to fool them. Hey, you keep going and flying up. No, As soon as she lays that egg, she abandons it. It has nothing more to do with it. She literally is putting a parasite into another bird's nest. The only birds that cuckoo chick has ever known are reed warblers. So why doesn't it think it's a reed warbler? The reed warblers have nurtured it, nature versus nurture, have fed it, have raised it, have encouraged it to fly, and as soon as it flies, that's it. So how does that cuckoo know that as the weather starts to get worse, it needs to fly to Africa just like its parent did? And when it gets to Africa, it automatically seeks out other cuckoos. How does it know what a cuckoo looks like? How does it know what a cuckoo sounds like? All it's heard is reed warblers. Why doesn't it think it's a reed warbler? But it does. And it seeks out other cuckoos to mate with, to repeat the whole process. So how does it know it's a cuckoo? Like I say, it's crazy. But it was born with the instinct to destroy every other chick or egg that's in that nest to leave it on its own. Nobody taught it how to do that. It was already hardwired. That was the hardware in that computer. So when anybody tells you men and women are the same, well, for a start, chromosomally we're not. Men are XY, women are XX. There's the difference. We're hardwired as boys to become men. As a man, your whole system runs on the fuel that you need for it to work, which is testosterone. Testosterone is naturally produced in men, and if you've got low testosterone, you're going to have lots of mental and physical health issues. Just like women's whole system runs on the fuel for their bodies, which is estrogen. Don't believe me? Go and speak to a woman who's gone through menopause and tell them how their mental health and physical health deteriorated once their body drastically dried up the amount of estrogen it was producing, and how much their life was improved when they were able to go on hormone replacement therapy, HRT, to replace synthetically estrogen, and how better their life was then. So when they say believe the science, I agree with that. Believe the science, so long as it stands up. Because science has done many, many experiments and many, many trials on newborn boys, newborn girls, literally weeks old, and the difference that there is between them. They've gone in with a blank slate, not going with any pre-conclusions on, and like, just asking the question, is there any difference between boys and girls when they're, 2 years old? At 2 years old, they don't see colour, they don't see boys and girls, they just see other children. So why is it the girls naturally are attracted to other girls and start playing in a completely different way to boys who are attracted to other boys and start playing completely different to the girls? The girls are more calmer, sit down, are more interactive with each other. The boys are more rough and tumble, more, smacking 10 blows out of each other. Why is that? Because according to those who don't want you to believe in science, it doesn't matter which they are, all they need is the right environment and the right nurturing, nature versus nurture. But nature says, you're a boy. You're hardwired to be a certain way. And that certain way will make you grow up into being a man. And all that's going to ever happen to you if you're constantly berated for being a boy, and that you're constantly taught in a way that isn't conducive for boys, is you'll end up with mental health problems and physical health problems. Because the physical side is it'll reduce your testosterone, which your body needs as a boy to grow with. It needs it to run. It's like fuel for us, just like estrogen is for women. But the second thing is that then you start doubting yourself as a boy, because you're constantly being told by your environment and by your society that you're less than. You're wrong to be a boy. You can't do anything right. So the nurturing isn't very nurturing. But the nature is there. And then when you've got the nurture hitting heads against the nature, the outcomes are bad. Instead of working with the nature, working with it. That cuckoo didn't need to be told it was a cuckoo. It knew it was a cuckoo from the very first second it hatched. It knew what its purpose was. It knew what it had to do. It knew that it was fooling those reed warblers. And it didn't matter how much love and attention those reed warblers were giving that cuckoo and feeding it and nurturing it and encouraging it to fly. At no time did the cuckoo think, I'm a reed warbler. I hope you got something from this. I hope I've informed you, if nothing else, informed you about cuckoos. I mean, it really is bonkers. How does it know it's a cuckoo? It just knows. That's nature. How do you know you're a man? You just know. You're a man. That's why rule 1 of the Brotherhood, never ever apologise for being a man. Now do you get it? Anyway, I'll talk to you another day. My name's Andy, and this is the Brotherhood of Men. So, come and join the Brotherhood. Subscribe. I hope I've earned your subscription, and I hope you want to be a brother. So subscribe. Hit the bell icon, that way you don't miss out on future content. Give the video a like. It costs nothing, guys, and it does help the channel. And of course, in the comments down below, did you know that about cuckoos? Have I blown your mind? But also, is nature going to be changed by nurture? I don't think it is. And it's been tried many times. Look throughout history, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, my name's Andy. I'm going for a cup of tea because I think I've earned it. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.